This episode of the Pepper Dynamics podcast is an initiative of the Pepperdine University chapter of Net Impact. The initiative is to help leaders broaden their thinking, build their network, and scale their impact beyond just individual actions.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Pepper Dynamics podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Pepperdine Graziadio Business School community. I'm Ty Brown.
And I'm Kia June.
Kia, I'm kind of excited about the guest we'll have on today. You know her. She is the president of the Graziadio Women's Business Association, and you are also a part of that association. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Katherine. I mean, you might feel the excitement in my voice, but I definitely feel it.
Absolutely, Ty. I'm ready to interview my president.
All right, excellent. Our guest today is Katherine Harrison. Katherine is president of the Graziadio Women's Business Association. She's a second-year Graziadio full-time MBA student, and she started her own business called Back to Baseline. Greetings, Katherine. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ty. Happy to be here.
Now, Kia and I are super happy to have you on. When we looked at your background, you went to UCLA undergrad, majored in geography and geology, and you worked in interior design while in undergrad and after, and then you started your own professional organizing business and decided to come here to Graziadio to be a full-time MBA student. Your business called Back to Baseline, helping people organize things like moves or offices and things like that. And you're also, more importantly, the president of the Graziadio Women's Business Association and have helped grow that association to the point where it is now. There are events every week and the membership numbers are high. So we are happy to have you on.
Thank you so much. Really excited to be here.
So thinking about the Graziadio Women's Business Association, tell us a little bit about that association and your affiliation with it in terms of becoming the president, but also your history with the organization.
Definitely. So when I first started the MBA program, there actually wasn't a club on campus that was focused on women in business. So as a first-year student, myself and my colleague, Mackenzie Jordan, who is our current club founding treasurer, and I decided to start the GWBA, or Graziadio Women's Business Association. So we essentially wanted to create a club or a professional club that also focuses on the school's mission of cultivating best for the world leaders, but also specifically trying to support, challenge, and empower women to thrive in the business world.
Yeah, that's excellent. I wonder about what are some of the things you've done since then, because it's a very active organization. The numbers are super high. There are undergrads that are members of the association. Like, talk to us about some of the things you've done to get it to where it is now in terms of, I guess, recruiting members and recruiting executive speakers and just a number of things.
Definitely. So I think, like you mentioned, we do host about one event per week. So it's quite a lot. And I think the key to getting our membership numbers high, but also the key to hosting so many fantastic events is just going for it. I mean, getting out there, and I'm the biggest fan of cold emails. So our entire board is often cold emailing connections on LinkedIn, speakers that we've met at the executive panels that the Career Center hosts, and just always reaching out and putting feelers out there to see who would be willing to come to campus to speak to our students, and who would students like to hear from. So it's been really fun, and we definitely have seen the results of our initiatives, as our membership is now, I think we're reaching 160 active members right now.
Well, I have to say, Katherine, as the director of Male Allies, I could not be happier to have you as president, and I'm really ecstatic about the direction that GWA is headed in. And as you know, I'm always trying to educate myself on how better to be a male ally, and I like to get everyone's perspective. So I'm going to flip the question that I ask everyone else on you. What do you think is like a hallmark of a good male ally? And what's one thing that you think every male ally should know?
Well, first of all, Kia, thank you so much for being our director of Male Allies and also for asking that question. I think the key to male allyship, or what we're hoping for, is just that that we first begin to open up the conversation on the topic. So there's some things that we talk about within the male allyship program, such as, just encouraging your female classmates' ambitions and attending their events and including them at networking events. So a big piece of this is just that inclusion aspect and making sure that we're all working together towards the same goal. I also just think that there's certain practices that male allies can apply within their work and personal lives. And so there's this thing called a male ally pledge that we hope that all men in graduate business programs would hope to participate in. And the message is simple. It's just to promote gender equity in the workplace so that we can have a more just workplace in society.
I'm a big fan of your answer, Katherine, and you put it as something so simple, but it's still, a fight to get there. And I'm just glad to be doing it alongside you guys.
Well, we're very happy to have you. We have seen, actually interesting, Kia, since you've become the director, we have seen a huge bump in male ally attendees at our events. So we're really, really excited to see that.
Kia for the win. I wonder, Kia, you being involved, and I guess you'll stay involved next year. This is pretty much for you, just as much as it for Katherine. But I wonder what you guys, in terms of leadership for the organization, what do you guys wish for the club as we move forward and you graduate, Katherine, and the club moves on campus?
Yeah, I think if I had to say one wish, it would just be that the club continues to stay active and that our membership will just continue to grow. One struggle that Graziadio clubs have is that when the first years come in and they start clubs and they grow to second years, the club fizzles out once they graduate. It is a 2-year program. So because it's shorter, it makes that need for recruiting to get going. Like the second that you join as a first year, the second that we have first years coming in, we need to be recruiting immediately then. So you don't have the luxury of that 4-year, maybe typical undergraduate program to find replacements and successors. So I think the key to the GWBA will be to continue to recruit a balanced amount of first years and second years so that there's continuity in the club as, the years progress.
One thing, when Kia and I were doing our research on you specifically, we definitely wanted to know about your business Back to Baseline. You started it back in 2016. You started a business prior to starting your MBA. Walk us through the process of actually starting your business, and I guess, have you been running it while you're still here in school, and then where do you see the business going after you graduate?
Definitely. So yes, I am still running my business from the MBA program. I'm doing both at the same time. But back to 2016, when I started the company, I essentially transitioned from interior design into professional organizing, which is when Back to Baseline was born. So just a little background for those who don't know what professional organizing is. I guess you can compare it to the home edit or the Marie method, if you guys know the book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. So these are two other organizers that work in our business, and our methodology is a little bit different. We have 6 service offerings, including home and office organizing, move management. I know, Ty, you mentioned that earlier, as well as digital and life organizing. So essentially, anything in your life that's stressing you out, that you need to get organized, we can help with that. And I think the key to starting the business is also, some of these questions, the most simple answer is sometimes the most difficult to implement. So the key to starting any business, I think, is to just start. So let me explain. You never are really ready to start a business, but the key is to just do it now. I think the biggest challenge is that we're always waiting until we have that perfect business plan or perfect value canvas, perfect idea, but then you'll never start. So I always am a fan of not calling it a side hustle. Don't call it a side hustle because it's more than that. So do it now, have it be your business, and then just iterate as you go throughout to improve upon your idea. So yeah, with Back to Baseline, what we did, we saw a problem out in the community and developed our service around that. And from there, I think, the next step is just to create your name and logo. Go for it. You can change it later. I know this is another piece where new entrepreneurs will get hung up on, is kind of waiting until you have that perfect name or logo outlined. And I think it's important to just start create it, put up your website, get your social media accounts going, because from there, you can start focusing on getting some of your first clients that will really take you off the ground.
I think that's really solid advice for entrepreneurs, Catherine. And I want to kind of scratch at your brain as someone who is busy and in school. So I want to ask, as a professional organizer, but also you as a student, how did you manage running a business while being in a full-time program?
Definitely. So I actually have 3 keys here. I think the first is to automate absolutely everything that you can. So if you do not need to do it, if you can automate it, if a software service can do it for you, that is going to be key. You want to get all of that set up so that you're not worrying about those admin tasks or day-to-day repetitive tasks that can easily be handled by some kind of CRM software or bookkeeping software. So the key first, I think, is to automate everything that you can. Second, something I use is called time blocking. And this has been really important to my success. So the key to time blocking is you don't task switch. So if you're working on school, then you'll set out a large block of time and only focus on your homework or studying for your exams. And then on a separate day, you'll time block out for your business and you'll only focus on your business, nothing related to school. This is really important because task switching wastes a ton of time and you don't ever reach that flow state in any space. So you're never going to reach flow in your studies. You're never going to reach flow in your work if you're constantly switching back and forth. So for me, time blocking has been a huge skill. And then lastly, just to accept and appreciate that you're busy. You know, you are busy. You're an MBA student, 2 years, 2-year program for most, and also working. So I think just shifting that mindset from being super overwhelmed to just having gratitude for being in this space and time in your life where you are busy is really key to kind of just, you know, accepting where you're at and how busy everything can get at certain points during the year. So
yeah, that's pretty excellent. So just start the business, right? Just go, right? You have an idea, go. And then once you get it started, then worry about the logo and the branding and those things. You use time blocking, which is, I imagine, a part of this whole organization thing that you have, blocking off time to focus specifically on certain aspects of whatever you're working on, whether it be business, time blocking just for school and those things. And then just accept the fact that you're going to be busy, whether you be in school or if you're just running a business on your own. Understand where you are and who you are in terms of your life. Those are excellent things. I do wonder about the pursuing an MBA, especially now that you're at the end of the process. What did you feel like you would get from going to an MBA program since you already had your business? And then do you feel like you got that now that you're about to graduate from the MBA program?
first, I'll say there's tremendous benefit to starting a business before pursuing your MBA because it just makes every single thing that you learn in the classroom applicable. So even if you don't currently have a business, if you're going to start your business within the MBA program, I mean, this is the perfect time. You can make mistakes in a low consequence environment, and it's just extremely valuable because you can use the information from the classroom and immediately inform your business development decisions. So it's definitely been helpful for me with my business. Going into the MBA program, I expected to learn a lot about finance and accounting and things that I didn't really get with my undergraduate education since I majored in geography and not business. But I actually, even in topics that I felt I knew a lot about, such as marketing, I'm still learning. I'm getting new tools for my tool belt that I never imagined that I would have before beginning the MBA program. So I think there's just a lesson in that we should be always learning and that there's always something new, a new concept or a new takeaway from even the topics that we know the most about. So if you are an entrepreneur considering starting a business, the MBA is the perfect time to do that.
I resonate so much here, Catherine, because before deciding to come to Graziadio, one of my cousins, both alum, one argued, okay, you should start your business, then go to Graziadio. The other argued, no, you should go to Graziadio, then start your business. And really, I think the key here is to, kind of do both in tandem. And I think that there's a lot of value to that. And you get to I personally feel more engaged in class because I get to apply the material directly into what I'm pursuing. Now, I kind of want a piece of wisdom here because we talked about the things that you are well versed in, the things that you think you know a lot, but you still have to learn lessons. What about the classes that you're, required to take that you feel that there's not enough relevant information for what you're pursuing? How do you find the wisdom when you're naturally going to be a little less engaged?
Yeah, I think, again, maybe this just plays back to the fact that I am an entrepreneur, that, when you're working in entrepreneurship, you are the jack of all trades in some essences. You need to understand every element of your business. And so the way that the MBA program core classes are structured, you're essentially taking one class for each area of business. So I think, again, like you mentioned, Kia, it matters more when you're relating it to your own company, because you know that what you're learning about in the classroom is going to be applicable to what you do. So finance, accounting, marketing, leadership, all these core classes that we're required to take, you can use those in your business immediately. So I think coming at it from a mindset of, you know, what am I learning in this class? Let's call it leadership class, that I can apply to the team that I'm going to be working with. And when you look at it from that perspective, I think you just naturally become more engaged because you know that it's going to impact your business's bottom line in the end.
Real quick follow up here. So every class you took, you are immediately thinking, what in this class am I learning that I can apply to back to baseline?
Yeah. And in fact, so, when we're able to choose companies of our choice, I'll always choose mine. So that way, whatever project we're working on, I'm essentially working on my business at the same time and killing two birds with one stone. In projects where we're not offered the choice for which company to choose, let's say an E2B project that we might be working on, whatever final deliverable we create for that project, for that company, I'll replicate that for my own. So I'll basically be doing double the work. So if we did a marketing plan for an E2B client, I will then, in my off time, do the same marketing plan, but for my company as well. So that way, at the end of your program, you'll have a whole portfolio of marketing plans and operational plans that you can then walk away with and start implementing in your business, or implement them as you're going along.
Yeah, Kia, this is the gold here. I'm sure we're taking notes here because this is
absolutely.
this is exactly what we need. Is it possible to sum up in one sentence the biggest benefit you've gotten for your business from being an MBA student? Is there something that you would walk away with if somebody said, name one thing you got from being here while you had your own business?
That's a tough question. There's so much that I learned. I guess the biggest thing I've learned is maybe more on the org development or leadership space. Sometimes those classes can be very high level and difficult to have concrete, skills that you take away from them. But I think just being able to work with people from backgrounds that are different than yours, maybe who don't have the same beliefs that you hold, or just being able to work with all different kinds of people, because your clients are going to come from many different walks, your team as well. So I think the biggest takeaway for my business is that diversity of thought, diversity of people on your team is very, very important, and also the most difficult and the most challenging. So it's kind of the most rewarding and the most challenging. So learning how to balance that, that's definitely a big component of what I've learned.
Which is excellent, right? When you talk about leading and working with and for people, whether they're in your business or people that are hiring you, as an excellent takeaway. You mentioned real quickly, something about people and their beliefs. I wonder about how you incorporate your personal values and beliefs into your own business, right? Beyond just a service to other people, there has to be Katherine Harrison all the way ingratiated into back to baseline. Talk to us a little bit about your personal values and beliefs and how you tie it into your business.
Definitely, Ty. I think that you're right. I mean, as the owner founder of Back to Baseline, my personal values are essentially equivalent or the same as what Back to Baseline's values are to my personal values as well. I think, yes, we have the typical, we're customer obsessed. We're care about our planet. We're very big on this because we deal with a lot of donations. So we are adamant that these previously loved products end up in the right homes, and they aren't just discarded. And then also, we have a giving back component where we give a portion of our proceeds to charities that we care a lot about. But I think in terms of my own personal values, I'm a very casual person, and um, I'm very casual. I am very big on flexibility and initiative and independence. So I think you see that a lot with my team. So I trust my organizers to go out and do the best job that they can for our customers, and that they have the competency to take initiative and be resilient. And so I think a lot of my personality you can see within my teams. And I think that also just goes back to how we hire our organizers. So we definitely hire for a culture fit, hire for people that can be autonomous, people that are very flexible and can deal with changing deadlines, and people that are late. As an organizer, we're dealing with disorganization. So we need people that can be organized, but that can also hang out in a messy space that is chaotic at times. So I think someone who can kind of almost be a chameleon is the best way to put it. Our organizers, or our team, is very much so a chameleon.
That is super interesting because my business is called Spage Media Group Roots of Wisdom. I started back in 2012, and it's built on creative leadership, right? And I want to make sure that the people involved in everything I do are creative and understand the benefits of leadership. And of course, I always say, and Kia can tell you this, I end every podcast I do saying that the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. I think you're doing that with Back to Baseline. You've done that with the Graziadio Women's Business Association. And of course, I try to do that in everything I do when I start a project, and if I'm leading a project, or even if I'm following in a project, I want to make sure there's an environment that people want to be a part of. Kia, I guess you can chime in here. You've been doing some voiceover work for a while now. You have your own Twitch channel. You're doing some streaming. I wonder about you in terms of values or belief in doing what you do, partnering off of what Katherine just said here.
Thanks, Ty, for bringing that up. Definitely. I resonated with Katherine mentioning a couple of the charities that she's involved with. I make it a point that anytime something comes up that is meaningful to me, that I do like a charity stream for it. So I've done a couple of 12-hour charity marathon streams for the Valley Food Bank is one of them. There was the Minnesota Freedom Fund back when the protests were going on. I also am in talks with the NIAC. Hopefully I can do something with the Iranian community, since I'm Iranian, in the LA area, but more importantly in the US. And I think it's so important that, we learn in class, okay? To be a leader, you have to kind of practice what you preach, and you're not managing, you're setting a direction. So I think it's so important to have that show in different facets of what you're doing, whether that's choosing ethical companies to do voiceover work for, or whether that's, if something really matters to you, raise awareness to it. Not necessarily do 12 hours of a charity stream if you don't have to. But I think those are super important in staying true to yourself and reinforcing your values and continuing to grow as a person.
Yeah, that's important. Katherine, you mentioned charities. Are there specific charities that you have interest in when you're doing some of your work?
Yeah, so we actually have two main charities that we give back to. The first is Charity Water. It's a pretty large organization. I'm sure that many of you have heard of it. And then also, as I was a Pi Beta Phi in college, so one of the organizations that we support is the literacy program that they offer as well, which ensures that all children are able to learn how to read.
I'll ask this last question and then we'll wrap. You've given us so much gold here in terms of us being first years, and anybody else who is listening or will listen to this episode of Pepper Dynamics. I wonder, as a second-year MBA, president of a student organization, you have your own business, and you're going to go out and continue to grow your business. Can you give us the gold on being a successful MBA student while we finish up our first year and move into our second year? Do you have the special formula for us? I guess is what I want to know.
Yes, actually, I do. I have all the answers. You should just listen to me and then you'll be good to go. No. I do think that when I think of my MBA program, I think of it in 4 buckets. I always say this. So there's the academics, there's your career, professional development, there's your extracurriculars and social life on campus, and then there's the networking piece. So I really find it's super important to make sure that you're filling each bucket equally so that you're not giving more priority to your academics over your career, to social more than maybe networking or professional networking. I think it's really easy in the program to kind of get hyper focused on one area and then neglect the others. So over the course of the program, I think maybe every month I'll sort of reevaluate. Am I filling each of these buckets equally? Am I focusing on career, or have I been too focused on my studies? Or, what have I been doing in terms of networking outside of campus? So by checking in regularly, you're able to kind of evaluate, am I making sure that all my cups are full, essentially? And then I think that kind of ties into a couple of the pieces of advice I would give, which is that I really find you must attend every single thing that you can. I know that sounds overwhelming. It sounds like a lot. But honestly, even on topics that you don't think you're interested in, especially topics that you don't think you're interested in, those are the events that you should go to, because you never know. You don't know what you don't know until you've gone and seen what it's all about. So, for example, I've attended days on the job, which we unfortunately can't do right now because of the pandemic. But for companies that I never thought I would be interested in, never have even heard of, and then walked out of the day on the job experience thinking to myself that might be a company I might be interested in. So I think that attending all the events is really important. Also, everyone should do a case competition at least one time in their MBA program. It is a whirlwind fast track of strategy and planning and working with groups, all within a 1 to 2 week time period. So that is a great opportunity for students to learn a lot in a very short period of time. And then the other 2 things I'll just mention is, talk to everyone, connect with everyone. Don't get sucked into a clique. I know that sometimes it's easy to kind of partner with the same people on your team for every single class, but don't do it. This isn't high school anymore. You want to take advantage of making connections, networking with different people, working with people that believe different things from you. I think the more often that you work with people that are dissimilar from you, the more you're going to learn. And that's the whole point of the MBA program. And then just, lastly, take it seriously. Do your best work. You're paying a lot of money to be here, or, someone is paying a lot of money for you to be here. So, take it seriously. This is an MBA program, and it's going to inform a lot of the decisions that you make for your career in the future. So, yeah, I think that's probably the key.
That's like excellent. I'm fired up now, ready to just continue on summer and next year. Actually, Kid, if you have anything, go on ahead and give it to us, because I'm over here processing what Katherine said.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm in the same boat, Ty, to be honest. But I think this advice is so solid. When I was choosing between undergrads, my cousin said, choose the one that's going to push you more. And this is the key of the advice that you're giving today. It's put yourself in uncomfortable situations and let yourself grow as a person. I think that's fantastic on an individual level, and it also amounts to like what you can contribute back. So really solid stuff, Katherine. I really enjoyed talking with you with Ty today, and I really appreciate everything you've done for GWBA, and I hope to carry some of your energy and spirit forward.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And please reach out to me with anything you want, questions, comments. If you just want to chat, I'm very available. I answer cell phone calls and emails. So please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you guys have if anyone has any other questions or wants to chat.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate it. That was Katherine Harrison. She is a second-year Graziadio MBA, and she's the president of the Graziadio Women's Business Association and has her own business, professional organizing business called Back to Baseline. And of course, this is Ty Brown with the Pepper Dynamics podcast, joined by Kia June. And the Pepper Dynamics podcast is where we recruit, retain, highlight, and inform people about the Pepperdine Graziadio business community. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.